Recorded.
Yeah, good.
Cool. We're at the fish and chip place?
Yeah. Nice
Best one in
place.
town.
Fish and chip.
Garibaldi?
And this is
Yeah.
our 61st
Wedding.
anniversary.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I picked her up hitchhiking.
Okay.
So we made a special trip down here to have our lunch for our anniversary.
Oh, wow. That's
61
nice.
years.
61 years. Ooh, long time. Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay. You take it other place if you want.
Thank you.
We wanted a very special place to have our dinner for our 61st anniversary, so we chose Garibaldi. So we chose to order the fish and chips, and this is our fish and chips.
Thank you. That's our... I'm having some of my coleslaw.
How's your fish and chips?
Put my napkin down. Oh, look at that.
That looks good.
Yeah.
How is it?
Oh, it's good.
Real good.
So how's your fish and chips?
Real good.
It was very good.
They claim to have the best fish and chips here that you would find anywhere, and that's no exaggeration. Everything is fresh since we're right down on the wharf where they can get the fish fresh. Nothing's frozen, and it is super good. They don't serve it on fancy china or anything. It's in a basket, but I'm that kind of guy. That's the way I like it. Marge is trying to make friends with some of the pirates out front. I don't know, they don't seem to be paying much attention to her, but at least she's giving it a try. Since we're down on the docks, let's take a look at some of the fishing boats and see some of the names of the fishermen on the little guardrail above the docks. Crossing the bar at Garibaldi is a very dangerous situation, and so many a fisherman have given their lives right on the bar out in front of Garibaldi. No one ever said that fishing out off the rugged Oregon coast was easy, and probably these people wouldn't have done it had it been easy, but they enjoy a challenge, and sometimes they put their life on the line just to go out and catch some fish. There are rows of these little memorial plaques along the Fisherman's Wharf, and these are men that surrendered their life to the sea. When I worked as a commercial fisherman, I would come at the beginning of the season and try to catch up on things that had happened, and I asked about one of the people that we were kind of visited with and were kind of close to. And the guy I asked said, "Oh, I guess I forgot to tell you, but he lost his life last winter." This shocked me. So after that, I just kind of didn't ask about a whole lot of people directly, and I got some very shocking news occasionally. This section is for the charter boats. Although these aren't the same boats I used to go charter fishing with occasionally, there are some very nice ones, and it's a really a fun and productive trip to go out of Garibaldi on a charter boat. I looked around for boats I recognized and faces I recognized, but since it's been about 60 years since I went to sea, I didn't recognize a single boat or a single person. And we mainly fished out of the Columbia River, out of Warrenton, Washington's where we tied up. But when we got out to sea, we'd make 10-day trips and pull into the nearest harbor. But we never did go into Garibaldi because the captain of the boat I was on was afraid of the bar at Garibaldi, and probably for good reason at that time. Since then, they've improved the jetties and improved the bar and the harbor, but just the same, it still takes lives. The men that walk the decks of these boats are a special breed of hardy individuals that don't mind going out during the night and in rough seas and taking the chance. Since it's such a nice day and we're already at Garibaldi, why don't we go down and check out the fishing on the jetty? There's a very strong outgoing tide now, so no one's catching any fish off the jetties, and we didn't expect to see a boat come in at all, and suddenly we looked up, and here they're starting to come in, bucking this strong outgoing tide. I guess the boats are more powerful now than they used to be in the days when I went out, and they can make it through this kind of a really strong current. The boat I fished on just had a simple little flathead Dodge motor in it, and it was gasoline, where now they have big powerful diesels that will bring them through this kind of rough water with no problem. But we probably wouldn't have been able to buck that strong a current at the time I fished. More of the attention seems to be on the boat, but we have to remember on these boats they all have decks, and there are men that walk these decks, and men with families and friends and everyone cheering for them. This boat's probably running his diesel at full bore, and he's making a little bit of headway, but he's not winning any races. You can tell the bar is just a little bit rough here today, but not too terrible bad compared to what it can be. But the boat will almost go out of sight when it gets down in a trough, and then when it gets up on top of the swell, it seems like you can see the whole world there, and you're up on a high place, but not for long. There's one swell after another, but it looks like they've almost made it in, even though they're bucking a very strong current. Everyone will breathe a sigh of relief when they get in to the calm waters at Tillamook Bay off the rough waters at Tillamook Bar. You never know when it'll be your turn to go to the bottom of the ocean and join the list of casualties that have happened on this bar. But today is a good day. There's no problem with the bar, and no one's getting in trouble, and the cruel green waters just keep roaring and hammering at the vessel, but it's built to take it. Just north of the jetty is Twin Arch Rocks, and you can see them up near the beach on the north side of the jetty, and a lot of people are enjoying the beach there, and I thought no one else would be coming in, and I looked out there, and what do I see but another vessel braving the bar. And it's really good to get in when you've been out to sea for a while. You can sleep in a bed that isn't tossing and rolling, and eat different food than you would at sea. Usually the ocean isn't the place you worry about. You worry about crossing the bar, and each bar has a different character, so there's a different concern no matter where you come in, and you have to talk to somebody on the radio and see how to get in if it's rough. Well, the jetty is built out here to protect uh, the entrance to the ocean, and it's also a nice place to go. A lot of people like to go and stand here and watch the boats come and go as they fight their way across Tillamook Bar. But we're going to go down and see if there's any fishermen out and see how they're doing right off the jet. It's always exciting to go in and sell your mess of fish, or probably this time of year it would be crabs. And I understand the crabbing's been super good. As you get into the calmer water, it's time to start putting things away on the boat. We look at the jetty and see these great huge rocks that weigh tons, and I found out that the reason these all have markings on them is each rock is numbered and weighed, and a couple years ago all this washed out, and so when they replaced it, they weighed each rock and wrote the weight of the rock on each of the rocks, and plus they're counted, and each rock has its own number there. So hopefully these rocks are big enough that the next time a king tide comes in, it doesn't wash its way through like it did here a couple years ago. We go down the jetty and see the remains of the pilings where an old railroad track used to run on these pilings. At the time they first built the jetty, they did it on railroad cars that hauled these huge boulders out and dumped them in. But now they have other ways of doing it, so the railroad is no longer needed, and it's almost completely gone. We can see many an old driftwood log that angry seas have cast up on the beach here. A few of the old pilings still stubbornly stand upright, but most of them have surrendered to time. Garibaldi was at one time a really big lumber port, and a lot of these logs were floated in on the bay before the big Tillamook burns, which silted the bay in where they couldn't move the logs that well, and besides, log trucks were born, and they haul them on trucks now. But Garibaldi's still a very interesting town to drive through, and it certainly has the character. Well, we're back home now, and we're still working on our rental house that we're getting somewhere near done with. The daffodils are already blooming. I guess we've been messing around too long and haven't got it done. With recent snowstorms, we started feeding the birds a little bit, And of course the jays had to come in and help the little birds, but the jays make hogs of themselves. The jays are supposedly some of the smartest birds there are out there, so maybe we'll just give some an IQ test and just see how brainy they really are. One thing to their favor, we started feeding them in a certain spot, and then we moved it, and they would come up and check. They remembered and came up and checked out the spot where we were feeding them. So there's a plus, and they have sense enough to haul the peanuts or whatever you're feeding them off and store them for a rainy day. So there's another plus to it. Now we're going to take one of these peanuts and tie it down and see if they can figure out how to get it loose. Just a little bit of dental floss ought to work well to tie a peanut down. First, we feed them some that aren't tied down so they get used to packing them away, and they've got a most definite pecking order. There's another plus to their intelligence. And they're not watching their waistline. They would much rather have a nice peanut than anything else that you might feed them. So there's this post out in front of the house we're working on, and anyway, they seem to like to land on it. So we're going to tie a peanut down on there and just see how smart these smart birds are. And we don't have to wait long before we have volunteers for this IQ test. First, they're not looking up on the post, and we see a robin or two hopping around out in the front lawn catching worms. But then the first volunteer came, and he tried to pull that peanut up, and it wouldn't come. So he decided there was something wrong, and so he just left. Another one came and knocked the peanut off there, and it wouldn't come, so he ignored it. And then they wouldn't come back to the post when they found that those peanuts were held. They knew there was something wrong. So that's another plus on their IQ test. The only thing, they couldn't figure out how to get them untied. And so that's a minus on their IQ test. There's other feed there that they're going, since there was other feed there, they're going after the easy to get stuff. No use wasting good food gathering time trying to pull on a peanut that won't budge. So they just totally ignored those on the post until everything else is gone. And then when everything else is gone, then it's time to come back and try to solve this problem. And Mr. Robin, he couldn't care less, neither could the other robin, since that's strictly a blue jay thing, and the robin's out there gathering worms. That seems to be easier than trying to get seeds. But these blue jays don't look like they're exactly good friends. One of them's challenging the other. I guess the pecking order is taking over here. And they peck up large amounts of seeds, and then they have a place they put them in down their throats, and then they take them out, and they can regurgitate them at that time and re-eat them, or else they can store them for a rainy day. Mr. Robin, he's still contented just going out here and listening for a worm, and they have such good hearing, they can hear a worm crawling under the surface of the ground, and so they just wait for him, and then when he sticks his head up, there's a tug of war between the worm and the robin. We've put the peanut back up on the post and put some little bird seed, and it seemed like the jays weren't eating that little bird seed. The little snowbirds seemed to be taking their share of it, and the jays weren't. But the jays were just taking the bigger peanuts, which had more food value to them, until they ran out of peanuts, and then they were more than happy to take the little millet-type birds. One of the jays have knocked one of the peanuts off the top of the post, and it's hanging down on the side of the post, and so he went after it with a vengeance. And it's every bird to himself now. Whoever gets it, gets it. There, somebody knocked one of the peanuts off the post, and he's grabbing it, trying to grab it off the side of the post. Well, they're going to talk about this for a little while, but they don't seem to really work together. That's a minus on their IQ score there, but still, it's plenty high. Marge would put the peanut back up on the post, and they'd knock it down almost as fast as she'd do it. They'd grab it and try to fly with it, and then, of course, it would just pull out of their mouths. And then they go after it on the side of the post. He's after that one. It's going around the post and hiding on him, but he knows how to handle that. But the one thing I was expecting him to do was just to sit there and peck the peanut out of the shell. But they couldn't seem to figure that one out. It just won't come, so there's no use messing with something that isn't going to work anyway. We've done the same thing with ground squirrels, and the ground squirrels, they'll try to pull it away a time or two, and then when it won't come, they just sit down and shell a peanut and take the peanut out of the shell, and they're on the way. But these guys haven't figured that out, so that's a minus on their IQ. But still, they're up there pretty darn high. When they ran out of everything else they could pack off to eat, then they started working on the peanuts again. So I guess that's a plus on their IQ. And this guy, he's going to load his gullet up and take it off and store it for a rainy day. Mr. Robin can't figure out what the big fuss is over a few lousy peanuts. He'd rather have a nice, fat, juicy worm than a peanut, but those jays, they're strictly peanutty. Mr. Robin is going to hop around and see if he can figure those jays out. Now he's got that peanut, what could possibly go wrong? Except the darn peanut just won't go with him. It's gonna take considerable thought to figure out what in the world's wrong, and that peanut just hangs on the post, and it's not supposed to do that. So he's going to have another bird come in and look at it, I guess, although they don't seem to get along very well together. Well, if you can't get the peanut, the best thing to do is just get down and get something that you can get. And so they're getting some of that millet and smaller things, and they're just going to let that peanut thing hang there and figure something else out to get it another time.